Experience. Today is July 10th, 2005. I am your host, Russell Glasser, and my co-host this week is Matt Dillahunty.
Hi.
We are sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. The ACA is a non-profit organization that promotes positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Crescent City Beignets at 1211 West 6th Street, a couple of blocks west of Lamar. That starts at 11:30 and is open to any atheist or atheist-friendly people. You don't have to be a member to come. That is every Sunday except for the third Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. Those start at 12:30. The next lecture will be held on July 17th. That's a week from today. Our speaker will be Craig Nazor. I probably butchered that. The Hartman Prehistoric. The title is The Hartman Prehistoric Garden, a place for ancient plants in a modern world. Essentially, what he's going to be talking about is the ancient history of Zilker Park. Other regular events include Godless Gamers every Monday night at 7 o'clock at my house. See the website www.atheist-community.org for information about how to contact me and get directions, or email tv@atheist-community.org and I'll get the message. Also, Atheist Happy Hour on Thursdays at 7:30 at Antonio's Tex-Mex on the southbound feeder of I-35, just south of 183. You can check the website calendar for more information on regular and special events that you can attend. We also have a regular internet audio show called The Nonprofits, every Saturday on freethoughtradio.com. For those of you still fans of the old version that was on atheistnetwork.com, this is totally the same, but it's in a different place. The show is hosted by Jeff D., co-hosted by Dennis Lube, and also features Matt Dillahunty right here and me. The next live show, since we are every 2 weeks, will be on Saturday, July 16th. That's next week. We did not have a new show yesterday. I should also mention that we have a new show website, thanks to Linda Raymond, our webmaster. The show website is nonprofitsradio.com. The ACA also has a board meeting on the second Sunday of every month before the regular meeting. Currently, we are meeting at Schlotsky's Deli on 218 South Lamar, south of the bridge. All ACA members are welcome to come and sit in on board meetings, but only board members may vote. This morning we had a board meeting, and the next board meeting will be August 14th. I've also been asked by the board to announce that we currently have a vacancy due to a board member leaving, and we would like to fill the slot, and whether people are interested in becoming a board member or not, you are especially encouraged to attend upcoming board meetings. So I'll keep announcing that as the date of the next meeting gets closer. If you enjoy the program today and you think you would like to come and meet us, we regularly meet for dinner after the show. Currently, we are meeting at Shanghai River on 2700 West Anderson Lane. That is a Chinese buffet that works pretty well for both vegetarians and us carnivores. As with other events, atheists and atheist-friendly people are welcome to come join us. Theists, I'm afraid, are not welcome to come join us unless you agree not to proselytize to us, because that's what this show is for. So, you want to argue? Do it now. If you want to hang out, come afterwards. That's in the same the Shanghai River is in the same parking lot as the Alamo Draft House. Just drive down Anderson Lane between Mopac and Burnett until you see the big movie marquee, and then go toward the back of the parking lot. We'll all be there after the show, arriving at around 6:45. Come and hang out with a bunch of the people who put this show on. And that's all for our regular announcements, and now we're going to turn to my co-host, Matt Dillahunty, who today will be talking to you about Scientology.
Yeah, Scientology. So Tom Cruise has been in the news a lot lately, and what with getting engaged to Katie Holmes and But he's also been accused of acting a bit crazy. Went on Matt Lauer and chewed him out, saying that, you don't know psychology or psychiatry, I know psychiatry, and talking about Scientology. Not a lot of people actually know a whole lot about the inner workings of Scientology or what this is all about.
I bet it's less than those who know about psychiatry.
It may be.
And I bet people who know about psychiatry know a lot more than Tom Cruise.
You would probably, I would agree. There's a lot of celebrities who are Scientologists. In addition to Tom Cruise, you've got Kirstie Alley and John Travolta and a number of others, and they put usually a very good public face on Scientology.
I have to say one thing surprisingly in favor of Michael Jackson, which is he married Lisa Marie Presley, and she was a Scientologist, and he split without becoming one himself. So. Then there was the whole molesting children thing, but
if you're a Jehovah's Witness,
declared innocent, so never mind.
If you're a Jehovah's Witness, Scientology isn't for you, and of course Michael is or was.
He was
a Jehovah's Witness.
Never mind saying good things.
Scientology does say that they're compatible with a number of other religions, although the truth of that's kind of a little different as you get into it. But I'm here today to talk a little bit about Scientology, save you possibly some time, and as much as $300,000 to $500,000, which is the bill that you would get over time to work your way up through the Scientology courses. It was created by L. Ron Hubbard in the early to mid 50s. He claimed to have discovered Dianetics, a process of cleansing the mind and discovering reality. He was a science fiction author who occasionally would talk about how if he really wanted to make money, what he would do is create a religion. And by a strange coincidence, he seems to have done just that. Dianetics is a process of treating what they call the reactive mind, which is evidently that part of your mind which reacts to things. And it's supposed to be a bridge to total freedom, where you proceed up through levels to a point where you are completely clear of your reactive mind. And the levels start off with stuff. We had a caller not too long ago who had you and Karen staring into each other's eyes for a while in order to find God. And Scientology starts off very similarly. The TR0, there's a little confusion as to what exactly is involved, because Scientology keeps all of this very, very secret. Although, the advent of the internet has kind of caught them by surprise, and it's all available now.
Can you tell me what the point was of having us stare into each other's eyes? I mean, assuming that guy was a Scientologist.
I don't think he was.
That thing?
I don't think he was. I think he was using, something similar maintaining eye contact is hard for some people to do. And there's, there's a lot of psychology and psychiatry involved in how things work, but
it's kind of hard for me to do, because you have to balance the idea of making eye contact with the fact that's drummed into our heads that it's rude to stare.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't know for sure that he was doing or beginning with an exercise.
What would be the point if a Scientologist was telling me to do it?
In Scientology, the first level, you end up just staring at another person, sometimes for hours. And if you move or blink, you have to start over. Now, if you sit and stare at one spot or one person for hours without blinking, that tends to promote hallucinations, odd feelings. Your eyes, begin to water because, you're not blinking to constantly, spread the fluid around. And you see things and you feel things. And it's a perfectly normal response of the brain, but it's also a typical method of certain brainwashing type exercises, where the resulting feeling and what you see and experience is proclaimed to be something greater than what we believe it to be. It's most people would look at it and say this is just the way the mind works, and as if I took a hallucinogenic drug or stared at one point for a long time until I became dizzy, I'm going to start seeing things. And Scientologists, along with other religions that use similar things, try to proclaim this as some inner truth, as if, we're sure that you're reaching into a new level of, and learning things. The next segment is exactly the same. It's called Tier 0 bull bait. And while you're staring and unable to move and not allowed to blink, the person you're staring at is allowed to get up in your face and yell and scream and call you names and try and break your concentration, and yet you have to keep your focus. The whole process continues, and there's a number of steps up, and after doing exercises, you have to go in and get audited, which they use a device called an e-meter, which is like 2 soup cans with electrodes connected to a little voltage meter type thing, and you hold the soup cans, and an auditor asks you questions, how do you feel? Have you ever been mean? Silly little things, and as your needle floats around the dial, they write things down.
What does E stand for?
Electropsychographic, I don't know.
Sorry.
It's like many Scientologists have a whole bunch of terms that they either made up themselves or perverted the meanings of and shortened them into little acronyms. Like, I would be listed as an SP, which is a suppressive person, because I'm speaking against Scientology. So that's their little code lingo on the inside. But the e-meter is the technology that they use to justify this as a science. I guess that's where they get the science part of Scientology. You keep doing this over and over again, spending more money until you get to a point where you're declared clear, that you're clear from your reactive mind. And then you move on to the higher levels, which are called OT levels, and there's 8 of them. And OT stands for Operating Thetan, or Thetan, depending on, I don't know, I would imagine it's Thetan, because Thetan sounds a lot like Satan, and well, that kind of throws him a curveball. But the OT levels, you are building up to OT3. And OT3 is where you start to learn the super secret truths of Scientology, and that's where you're told the story of Xenu. Now, I'll get back to Xenu in a moment, but after you've learned the story about Xenu, you continue up through the OT levels to OT8, and that used to be the end of it. But they've since added new L levels, I guess, at the top. I don't want to say that they're doing this just to have a way to bring in more money to those people who have finished the program, but that's kind of the way this thing goes. It's a method of bringing in money, and L. Ron Hubbard said it on more than one occasion. There's even a Church of Scientology directive where, and I won't quote this exactly, but it's make more money, train more people so that they can make more money. Scientology, by the way, has been banned from Greece and Germany and a number of other places as being a harmful money-making scheme and not actually a religion. But I mentioned that at the OT3 level, you learn about Xenu. So in order to get as much of it right as possible, the actual documents are available on the net, or photo scans of what L. Ron Hubbard wrote. This is actually a pamphlet from clambake.org, and we can put the website up there for you. If you want more information about Scientology, clambake.org is a good place to start. Now it's an anti-Scientology site, but the actual Scientology sites don't really tell you much. They're more of a lure you in and get you started thing. And also, to be fair, I'm not saying that there's nothing good or beneficial out of Scientology, just as if, meditation. I mean, certain things that you can do can be good. Most of this is about the practices of the Church of Scientology and how they choose to operate and treat their members and earn their money.
While we're throwing out websites, I should mention that the Skeptics Dictionary also has a very good article on Scientology. That's skeptic.com.
Yep. That's a really good site for a lot of things. So this pamphlet from Clambake kind of summarizes what Scientologists believe, and they put it in a neat little story. But the facts in here are accurate, and they've even included a little snippet of something written in L. Ron Hubbard's actual handwriting. But the story goes that once upon a time, about 75 million years ago, there was an alien galactic ruler named Xenu. Xenu is in charge of all the planets in this particular part of the galaxy, including our own planet, Earth, which in those days was called Tigiak. Now, Xenu had a problem. All the 76 planets he controlled were all overpopulated. Each planet had an average population of 178 billion people, and he wanted to get rid of this excess population, so he formulated a plan. With the help of renegades, Xenu took complete control and defeated the good people and the loyal officers, and with the help of psychiatrists, he called in billions of people for income tax inspections, but they were instead given injections of a paralyzing mixture of alcohol and glycol. They were then put into space planes that looked exactly like DC-8s, except that they had rocket motors instead of propellers.
Income tax inspections by psychiatrists?
I didn't write this. Those DC-8 space planes flew to Earth, where the paralyzed people, numbering in the hundreds of billions, were stacked around the bases of volcanoes. When everyone had been piled on Tigiak, which is Earth's old name, H-bombs were lowered into the volcanoes. Xenu then detonated all the H-bombs and everyone was killed. The story doesn't end there, though. Since everyone has a soul, called a Thetan in this story, Xenu had to trick the souls into not coming back, because Scientologists believe in reincarnation. So while the hundreds of billions of souls were being blown around by the nuclear winds, he had special traps constructed that caught the souls in electronic beams, like sticky flypaper. After he captured the souls, he had them packed into boxes and taken to huge cinemas. There the souls spent days watching special 3D motion pictures that told them lies about what life should be like here. And these films confused them and tricked them into believing things that were not true. As a side note, they're called, the Scientologists refer to them as engrams. And L. Ron Hubbard stated that Christianity and other religions are actually engrams, or lies, that our souls are fed in this cinema between reincarnations. They were shown false pictures and told false things, including stories about Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and other religions. The process is called implanting. When the films ended and the souls left the cinema, they began to stick together in groups. They had all seen the same film and thought they were the same person. So they clustered in numbers of a few thousand. There were only a few living bodies left, so they stayed in clusters and inhabited those bodies, who are our ancestors. As for Xenu, the loyal officers finally overthrew him and locked him away in the mountain on one of the planets. He's kept there by a force field, powered by an electric battery, still alive today, 75 million years later. And so today, everyone, according to Scientologists, is full of these little clusters of souls called body thetans. And in order for us to be a free soul, we must remove all of our body thetans and pay enormous sums of money to do so. And the only reason people believe in God, Christ, Muhammad, Satan, or anything is because it was filmed, or it was a film that was shown to their body thetans 75 million years ago.
Didn't you just say he was a science fiction author?
Yes.
Douglas Adams wrote more plausible stuff than that.
I thought, yeah. I don't know, in his original handwriting, which is kind of hard to read and very brief, that entire story, which Scientologists seem to have built on, comes down to the head of the Galactic Confederation, 76 planets around larger stars visible from here 95 million years ago. Very space opera. Solved overpopulation by mass implanting. He caused people to be brought to Tigiak, Earth, and put an H-bomb on the principal volcanoes. I don't know, that's the first page in L. Ron Hubbard's own words.
Maybe Battlefield Earth was actually, one of those evil movies that they screened to fill you with that information.
It could be because, that was John Travolta's tribute to L. Ron Hubbard.
After seeing, I haven't seen Battlefield Earth, but I would imagine that a lot of people who saw Battlefield Earth came away with the conclusion that L. Ron Hubbard is a moron, and that, of course, we know must be a lie. So
yeah. So that's the story that you learn at OT3, which is after spending quite a bit of money and progressing. A lot of Scientologists never even get to that level. It's either too expensive or too time-consuming, and they keep them in this rotation of clearing their reactive mind and being tested by an e-meter. But the whole purpose of the OT4 through OT8 levels is to get rid of these little clusters of body thetans, which are latched onto you, and so that they can be free. And this plan of Xenu's to use psychiatrists to call people in, I thought it was kind of interesting that the space planes looked exactly like DC-8s, which were the height of technology in the 50s when this revelation came to L. Ron Hubbard. Though I'll give him credit for putting, rocket motors on them instead of propellers. He at least recognized the flaw in trying to travel through space with propellers.
That would be like 17 years before we got a rocket up to the moon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so of course, L. Ron Hubbard didn't know about actual rocket ships, so neither could the aliens, right?
So some people wonder, well, how could people believe this? And part of it is that they're fed a lot of lies about who L. Ron Hubbard was. In Scientology, he's extremely revered, and there's a lot of misinformation about his life and his history. And he was this famous war hero when actually he served 3 years in the Navy and never saw combat. And they build him up, and they pretty much tell people what they need to hear in order to continue. Tom Cruise talked about psychiatry and Ritalin. They do not approve of the use of drugs to treat diseases or symptoms. Everything is a result of body thetans and engrams that you need to clear using your e-meter and answering a bunch of questions. The really scary thing about this is that it can be very, very dangerous. And in 1995, a woman named Lisa McPherson got into a car accident. She wasn't seriously hurt, but she got out of the car and stripped off her clothes and began kind of ranting incoherently. They took her to the hospital, found out that she wasn't physically injured, but they wanted to hold her for psychiatric observation. The Church of Scientology came and picked her up and said, no, she's a Scientologist, she doesn't believe in that, we're going to take her back with us. They took her back, and the details are sketchy as to what actually happened, but they held her for 18 days, and 18 days later she ended up back at the hospital, dead on arrival, 30 pounds lighter, covered in bruises and bug bites. What actually happened while she was there, we're not really sure, and while criminal charges were filed, they were later dismissed for lack of evidence. But I think it's kind of clear that the woman had some mental issues, and their treatment clearly didn't work for her. And it doesn't stop there either. In 2003, there's a guy by the name of Jeremy Perkins, whose mother was into Scientology. He was actually sent to Los Angeles to go through the initial training levels, and was scheduled to leave with the Sea Org, which is a group of elite Scientologists that operate completely off of ships traveling the world. They're kind of that's where L. Ron Hubbard lived while he was alive in Scientology. He was the Commodore of this fleet, and the operation is essentially run from there. Not completely sure why, but there's a lot of things about Scientology that are still unknown. But Jeremy Perkins was sent back from the LA facility to live with his mom. He was rejected as an unsuitable candidate, I guess. And because she was a Scientologist, she decided that turns out he was paranoid schizophrenic. And she didn't believe in psychiatric treatment or drugs to resolve this, so she treated him with vitamins and kept him at home. He didn't like taking the vitamins. They obviously didn't do anything to help him. And he ended up stabbing his mother 77 times. Scientologists don't like when people talk negatively about their religion, and I suppose nobody really does. I can understand that, but they have launched a campaign. They have lists of evil people and hated people and enemies of Scientology. And they file lawsuits like crazy. and it's for the sole purpose to harass. It doesn't matter to them whether they win or not. They've filed lawsuits to harass, and that's, at least from the documents that have come out from some people who've left the organization a little ticked off and brought the information out to the public. The internet evidently caught Scientologists by surprise, and when they found out that there was some of their secret information and some negative publicity was out there on the internet, they weren't really prepared to shut it down. They entered a bunch of legal battles with different websites saying, you need to remove this, this is copyrighted material and everything else. Fortunately, there were court cases where the information which we have was actually entered into the public record. Otherwise, it would actually be illegal for anybody to relay the story about Xenu, because that's proprietary knowledge that they're charging $300,000 to $500,000 for. But in 1998, the Church of Scientology. Go ahead.
How can they have a legal case for that? I mean, proprietary knowledge. I mean, the people who are posting it on the internet haven't signed anything. And is there a
if you got the
copyright
script
on it?
If you got this, yeah, it would be that way. If you got the script to the next Star Wars movie, if there is one, and published it on the internet for free before the movie was made, you would be facing criminal charges. It is kind of a copyright issue. But anyway, in order to protect their members from the SPs like me, the Church
that stand for again?
Suppressive person, I think. The Church of Scientology began issuing its members a CD containing a copy of Netscape Navigator in 1998. Those who installed Netscape didn't realize that a censorware program had been incorporated into the installation process. This program gives no indication of its presence and offers no means of removal. If you're a member of the Church of Scientology and you have installed this software, try going to xenu.net, xenu.net, or clambake.org, and you'll probably find that if you're using that particular software, granted this is 7 years ago.
And I would bet that they probably told everybody that if you use Internet Explorer, you're at SP.
I don't know that for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. But they've got this campaign to discredit people and harass people in order to keep the reputation of the church kind of, high, which is why one of the reasons why the celebrities are treated so well. The celebrity doesn't go through what some of the others do. I mean, there are people who worked for the Sea Org, because if you can't afford to pay $300,000 to $500,000, they still want you to be in the religion and join and become clear. And if you join the Sea Org, that's a way for you to work for Scientology, to pay off the debt, and move yourself towards the upper levels. There are people in the Sea Org who work for way below minimum wage, like getting a paycheck for a week or a month that was $3. They also sign a 1 billion year contract. When you believe in reincarnation, signing a contract for 1 billion years is the right thing to do. So I'm going to work for the Sea Org for 1 billion years. And during your time,
how are they going to keep track of that, though, when you die and come back?
I don't know. I'm not privy to the high levels. Maybe there's something in the L levels that tells how they track down. I might have signed a contract in a former life. I might have to look into that.
Yeah, you should check that out.
1 billion years.
Of course, if I may speculate a little, when you're talking about famous actors, which is most of the people they trot out for Scientology, what you're talking about is somebody who is generally young, because they like good-looking people, and has a whole bunch of money, and has probably been completely caught by surprise about having a whole bunch of money, since you go more or less straight from struggling actor working at a restaurant to, hey, you were in this one mega hit, now everybody wants you. So, hey, somebody who has a bunch of money and is young and naive and doesn't know what to do about it. Good target.
Yeah, and I don't believe for a second that these people I don't know for sure what Tom Cruise or anybody else knows. I don't know what level of Scientology they're in. I don't know what they've been exposed to. I find it hard to believe that they are really in the know on what's gone on, that they've been privy to the horror stories of some people who've gotten out of Scientology, because if you aren't meeting your expectations, if you're an employee of the Church of Scientology, whether in the Sea Org or in LA or wherever, they've locked people up in closets and put them on bread and water for days or weeks at a time while they sort out their issues and get back on track. Meanwhile, they're paying them $3 a week. Once you deduct room and board and the price for the training sessions that they're doing, plus the entire thing works off of supposedly, Scientology as a whole brought in this much money this month, and we have this many employees. And what you do is you're graded, and if you bring in X number of people to our registrar station, you get X number of credits, and that's a number of shares in the total profits for that period of time for you.
Scientology sounds a lot like sharecropping in a way. It's like, you live on the master's land, and you can only buy things in their store, and they make sure to charge more than you can afford for it.
Yeah.
So you become an indentured servant.
But for anybody who wants more information, because I just kind of went through it relatively quickly, clanbank.org is a really good site to get more information. It is not an unbiased site. He'll tell you right up front. It goes through and it talks. There have been people who've posted there who are former Scientologists, and the people at Clanbank, and I would agree with them, think that this is a really dangerous money-making cult thing, and would rather get more information out than just a celebrity talking about how Scientology's really improved their life. Now, if you heard all that stuff about Xenu and Scientology, and you're thinking, this is just absolutely silly and potentially dangerous, I mean, I don't know how anybody could believe all that. Now you understand, to some extent, how I feel about Noah's Ark, Jonah and the whale, Lot's wife being turned to salt, Lazarus being resurrected, the Tower of Babel, Jesus' water to wine, loaves and fishes resurrection, the Eucharist transubstantiation, and why I and others feel that critical thinking and evaluation of evidence is the best way to make sure that you don't believe silly things that are unwarranted.
Well said.
Thanks.
This is a live call-in show, and we've already got full lines full of callers, although some of them called before they had a chance to realize we're talking about Scientology. So we're going to start out with Stu. Hello.
Hi, guys. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How you doing, Stu?
I'm doing all right. That was an excellent explanation of what Scientology is, I believe. I wonder how clear Tom Cruise's mindset was when that guy threw water on him at that interview. I mean, do you have to clear out and use your monitor to feel, to clear out feelings how you feel about that, or?
I would think he would.
Who knows?
I mean, this sounds like meditation to me, because I'm an avid meditator, and it sounds like you basically are listening to your mind, and whatever you're being reactive to what your mind is kind of doing. And then you're using mechanics that they give you in Scientology to overcome those problems. Is that kind of the basis of the practice?
That's a lot of it from what reading I've done on the actual training exercises they do.
Yeah. So you use meditation basically just to get yourself in a certain mind state, not because you're talking to something supernatural.
Well, meditation allows me to come from a place in my soul and listen to my mind.
I see.
And really, since I watch your show every week, and I'm curious, as atheists, and are you trying to draw parallels between Scientology and maybe Christianity or Islam, other religions, that the same place that Scientology came from is maybe the same place that other religions have come from? So we need to take a look at that.
I don't think that's it. Actually, it's funny you would ask that, because a lot of times we are asked on the show, why do you guys spend so much time talking about Christianity all the time? There's all these religions out there, and you seem to pick on Christianity. Well, the fact is, we do deal with Christianity a lot just because it's in the news a lot. It's the predominant religion in the country. But, we from time to time we pick on other religions because we think, anything that's based on the supernatural is all equally without basis in fact. So that's it.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm actually trying to draw a true parallel, although if you're asking if I believe that all of those religions are equally unworthy of consideration, yeah. It doesn't matter to me whether you think aliens populated the earth, or reincarnation and you're implanted with ideas, or if Jesus died for you, or if maybe leprechauns are actually people who have ascended to a higher plane and the pot of gold
was
just
licked out of a block of ice by a giant cow. I've always liked that one.
To me it doesn't matter which of those beliefs you want to put forth. If you don't have any evidence to back it up, it's just a claim, and if it's a claim which is silly and contradictory towards evidence we do have, then I think it's exceptionally unreasonable to believe it.
Well, I have knowledge of the fact that L. Ron Hubbard was a part of the Illuminati, and that he basically was a member of a secret global society that he was instructed to
do you have
become.
proof?
What's that?
Do you have proof?
Yes, I have knowledge about that.
No, knowledge is different than proof.
Well, my grandfather was, and he worked for the CIA in the 50s, and he was part of the testing that they did on LSD, on particular military agents, and he had private knowledge, just through his experiences within that government agency, that L. Ron Hubbard was a member of the Illuminati.
Okay. Suppose that's true. Who cares?
Well, the Illuminati, if you're familiar with that organization, they come from a group of supposed aliens that were two brothers that basically...
no, I don't think that's right, actually. I've been reading about the Illuminati a little bit in the past couple of weeks. We might actually do a show discussing people who think that Illuminati runs the world in the future.
That's interesting. An atheist reading a book about the Illuminati. I think Scientology
we read books about a lot of things.
Suck.
Yeah, we read...
Okay.
Okay.
Atheists suck and Scientology. Thanks for calling, though. And
that was a lucid, well thought out opinion.
Yes.
You suck too.
You were relatively calm when telling us how much we suck. Maybe I'm the Illuminati. We are the evil atheist conspiracy,
That's true, too.
Wow.
Okay, we're going to go on to Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good?
Pretty good.
Kind of to go back to the Tom Cruise thing, just to let you guys know,
Yeah.
he is actually a level 3 L class yellow
Really?
wizard in the
Is that
Scientology.
good?
Has he made that public somewhere, or
Oh, no, I have knowledge of that, actually.
from where?
Well,
I have
the
knowledge of
last
that.
guy had knowledge.
Be careful when you say you have knowledge.
I know, I'm just kidding. Actually, I just want to touch upon that. It's not really, it has something to do with it. I think the latest Tom Cruise spew about Scientology was actually a really good thing because of how ridiculous it sounds, out in public, a celebrity doing that, just saying that kind of stuff, without merit. And
he didn't really say the really ridiculous stuff. All he said is that psychiatrists are bad. But
yeah, I know.
It almost surprises me that he's at a level, L3, whatever, because he doesn't appear to be someone who has completely cleared his reactive mind.
Yeah.
Because he reacts rather strongly. He did to Matt Lauer, and he chastised Brooke Shields for using medication to postpartum depression.
I don't know if you've seen this, but Brooke Shields wrote a great editorial in the New York Times where she came back at Tom Cruise, and she was like, okay, Tom Cruise says he completely understands where I'm coming from. This is a wild guess, but I bet Tom Cruise has never directly experienced postpartum depression. And it just kept going from there. It was great.
I think there's actually a new website. I know there's a link from Clambake to it, but I think it's TomCruiseIsNuts.com. But there's definitely a link on Clambake if you want to check it out. It's all the stuff that Tom's been saying and replies from Brooke Shields, etc.
Yeah, well, what I want to say about that was just that I think that a celebrity, a lot of people listen to celebrities, which is kind of sad that they're the main focus of a lot of people to listen to for their opinions. But if he could come out and say that, I wish there'd be a celebrity, or I wonder if you guys know of any celebrities that would actually come out and speak about atheism. It just kind of makes sense. It's not crazy, it's not evil, it's not bad. It just really makes sense. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, actually, there's a site out there. I believe it's a wiki site now, meaning people are free to come in and edit it and be subject to a review process. I think it's celebrity or celebatheist.org, but I don't know exactly. You might want to Google that. You might want to Google celebrity atheist, because there's a list out there and it's huge.
Yeah, it just makes. It seems that just like it's such like it's not like a religious idea, It's just a straight like way of like just thinking about something. It's not ridiculous. It's not like supernatural or like just
right.
a lot of non-factual stuff. It just like it just seemed to me that it's opened a door for someone to like a celebrity to come out now and like kind of speak about atheism almost and say like it's kind of normal. It's just like,
well, if you're looking for atheists who are open about. Or if you're looking for celebrities who are open about their atheism, there's a great discussion in One Woman Show by Julia Sweeney. There's Penn and Teller, who on their Showtime show have talked about a number of issues, and they're both openly atheist, as are quite a few others. So there's some on the list who you would recognize that you would actually be able to find comments from them in discussion. So it's not unheard of. It's not as popular as I might like.
I think it's just a good door open now, though, just because it just like brought up kind of the subjects of how it's almost ridiculous if you think of everything, all different kinds of religious kind of.
Yeah, we actually had a shirt for sale from the atheist community of Austin at one point, and I'm not plugging it because I don't even know if we still sell it. But on the back it said, "You are not alone," and then it had a big list of famous atheists.
That's cool. Yeah, that's all. I was just touching if I'm, that's about it. And I guess I'll let you go to the next caller.
Okay, thanks for calling.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes.
Next, we're going to go on. I actually have a few news stories, but
sure.
I'll wait until time is pressing or we have a gap. We're going to go to Tom. Hello.
Hey guys.
Hi, Tom.
Almost too much to talk about. It's interesting. The topic I originally wanted to ask you about seems to have come up kind of obliquely. In relation to Scientology, it was interesting. Earlier this week, I saw one of Alex Jones' shows on Access, and he showed the whole Matt Lauer interview with Tom Cruise. And at the end of it, he was defending Tom Cruise.
Oh.
Saying that people shouldn't call him crazy. And so apparently Alex Jones and that whole ideology is very much in tune with Scientology on that issue.
What was his reason that they shouldn't call Tom Cruise crazy? Did he have one?
Yeah, I think he and probably the ideology he represents, I think they also disagree with psychiatry and drugs.
That may be, but there's other reasons that people come out with to say don't call him crazy, and it's this idea that you're actively criticizing anyone's religion is somehow wrong. You can criticize anything you want until somebody says that's my religion, and then all of a sudden it's hands off. And, well, I, for one, obviously don't ascribe to that at all. I think it's actually once your crazy ideas have crossed over into a religion, that's when you're actually talking about something that's potentially dangerous.
I mean, the fact that you believe in some nutty stuff doesn't automatically make you wrong about everything. I mean, it may very well be true, and I haven't done a lot of reading about it, but it may be true that there are a lot of valid criticisms about psychiatry and giving people drugs. Maybe folks are too quick to assume a chemical imbalance, but if you also believe that space aliens are sticking little beings in your body and controlling your mind somehow, you're still crazy, even if you believe some other stuff that's true.
Yeah, I don't think Jones was defending him because it was part of Cruise's religion. Mm-hmm. But that kind of brings me to what I wanted to talk about. I'm new to Austin, and I've been watching Jones's show, listening to him on the radio a little bit. And
welcome to Austin.
Similar ideas. And I find him and I'm an atheist,
yes.
I find him very interesting, and he's a compelling guy. And the reason I'm asking you is because he kind of skirts around religion. He'll mention it briefly and then go on. But if you listen to him closely, it seems like the a lot of these ideas come from an apocalyptic and a fundamentalist Christian viewpoint, although he does not like to talk about that very much. But it comes up there, and I just wondered what your experience was and what your take was on the Alex Jones worldview. And I know he represents a lot of other people, not just himself. There are a lot of people that have that conspiracy mindset, and the Illuminati came up before. Mm-hmm. That was very interesting with Ron Hubbard being part of that, because they like to talk about that. See, they believe the whole
you have
conspiracy.
to understand, though, that could have just been a call to bait us, since he was waiting to say atheists suck. And also, if you're new to this show, you may not have noticed that people call us about the Illuminati all the time, and we usually just don't talk about it because it's off our topic, basically. But I mean, as far as Alex Jones goes, I have nothing in. I don't listen to him often. I have nothing particularly against him. In fact, he's called into this show a few times, and sometimes he's called in not using his name, but he has a very distinctive voice, you know.
Yeah.
And he seems to be kindly disposed toward us, or at least not hostile. And there are things he believes that I think are probably kind of silly, but I don't have strong opinions about him in general.
I haven't paid enough attention to Alex to really
I didn't know if you guys knew whether or not that kind of point of view.
I don't know, but you're welcome to call him and ask.
Yeah. Well, I figured it's probably easier to get into you than it was to him.
Oh,
so
because we're not as popular.
Sure.
You just don't have much to say on his subject, or you don't have that much knowledge of where his worldview comes from.
This show definitely tries to stay away from politics for the most part, except where we're talking about separation of church and state.
There are things about conspiracy theorists that seem very much like they're doing the same thing. They believe things for the same reasons as religious people. There are elements of religion where you're encouraged to believe that any kind of doubt about the religion comes from some kind of, evil influence on you. And by the same token, when you talk to conspiracy theorists, if you try to tell them things that you know or are aware of or have read, they say, that's just the conspiracy hiding it from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're being duped.
Right.
But I have heard him, and especially guests on his show, talking about the globalists and the ultimate people behind this global conspiracy being demon possessed. So I wondered how much it tied into that real that hardcore Christian fundamentalism.
I really can't answer that because I haven't watched him enough. I'd be curious as to whether or not. I think it's a good question. Did he mean that literally, or was it kind of a metaphoric?
Yeah.
Because I'll say God on in what would normally be considered a vulgarity on occasion, or on occasion I'll reference God or whatever, and some people will look at me funny. Well, you're an atheist. Why would you say X? And it's just that it's worked into society's vocabulary, and sometimes it's the easiest word to reach for. It's pretty short, so.
Okay, well, I'll let you guys go.
Hey,
thanks for the time.
Alex, if you're out there, you're free to call us, and if you are an atheist or have a religious point of view to discuss, that's certainly on topic. So, go for it. What's next? We have Robert, who's got something about Scientology.
Hello?
Hi, Robert.
Oh, no, this is Mike. I'm in the screen, so...
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so... I've got a lot of things I was going to comment on, as far as the Alex Jones was, I saw the same show, and Alex Jones was basically, just, I know you want to belabor this point, but he wasn't defending Tom Cruise. He was saying that Tom Cruise was not part of, Scientology is not part of the globalists, so the globalists were attacking
Oh, so
media.
In other words, somebody accused Scientology of being part of the cult that controls the world, and he said, no, it isn't.
I mean, he was just anybody that comes under gunfire, crossfire in the media. He said he was saying that they were just not answerable to the globalists. They weren't a part of it, so therefore, he's absolutely anti-global. See, my take is I think it makes perfect sense there, because see, money has ruled the earth forever and always will. There's no religion, there's no countries, there's no states, just local government.
Only after money was invented.
Pardon me?
Only after money was invented. That was actually a fair bit into human history before that happened.
Well, I was talking like maybe the last couple of 100 years.
Yeah.
So, really, yeah.
Just
I'm sure
wanted
back
to
when
clear that up.
people were using peppercorns for money at one time. So,
Very small rocks.
Bricks, apples.
but the,
Sorry.
but the great bulk of the population is always going to be one to be told what to do, and that's why you're always going to have religions. You're going to have George W. Bush. You're going to have heroin, and then things like that. People want to have something to look at my life. I hate my life. Somebody please tell me what to do with my life, and you'll always have religion. But have you all ever heard of a religion called the BaHai faith?
Yes.
There's an article in the paper about it the other day, and they said that there was a man who was part of it. He said that they're very persecuted in Iran because they're kind of a peaceful sect, and they were formed in the 1800s. And he said some of the beliefs and their tenets were equality between men and women, education for all, love, and all.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what BaHai says is basically that all religions have an element of truth in them, and so the
That was what I was going to say.
the truth is a combination of all of them.
So naturally, they're violently persecuted in Iran.
Yeah.
Well,
I am against persecuting people for their religion. But at the same time, I'd like to say that I had an online argument with a Baha'i once, and it was like the most annoying argument I ever had. And the reason is because when you're when you're dealing with like Christians who believe really nutty stuff, like the Earth was 6,000 years old, or there's talking snakes. It's really easy to go after them. But when you've got a Baha'i, they always they're really slippery. They always just squish off in another direction. Like, oh yes, well that can be true too.
That's the last thing I don't want to get to for topic too much, but
yeah, and apparently this Baha'i believed that everybody in the world is right except atheists.
Well, the guy that was talking that avocado dip that was talking about meditation a while back. Mm-hmm. So my take on meditation is I pretty much spend a lot of time on my own, so I just naturally just sit in a chair and think to myself without getting a bone crushing position on the floor. I mean, I just sit there and just in a chair and just comfortably think my situation, what am I going to do with my life, and that's what I call it meditation. But to the people go, I meditate and you don't. Therefore, that's my religion. That's my cult. And so that's just another thing for them to flash out at you and throw in your face. Like I think most people do. The problem with most people is they always have people around them, so they can't think and meditate.
Well, it seems to be kind of an extremist, or taking something to the extremes. I'm all in favor of sitting down quietly by yourself, reading a book, thinking about things, looking at the grass, whatever. But once you, and I think that can be beneficial. It's always good to, clear your mind, get away from stress, get away from the things we have to deal with every day. But taking it to the extreme of, now I'm trying to meditate myself to an alternate plane, extend myself out of my body, and visit my cousin in France. I think it's pointless.
Spending a little time in quiet solitude to summon the better part of your nature can be looked upon as a religion of a sort, and that's it. And just end it right there. You can throw in the golden rule, and so I can pretty much consider that my religion, which is less religion. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah. We tend to think that definition of religion is way too vague to actually mean anything. Generally the primary meaning of religion is worshiping some kind of supernatural entity, which is why we always have to remind people that atheism is not a religion, at least not by any definition of religion that is really well understood. Let's go on. Do we ever want to do news? I'll wait till 5:30. Let's go on to Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hi.
How you doing?
I call in almost every week. You guys do a great show. I am an agnostic and agnostic friendly. I'm trying to get a message out to people who may be watching who are confused about the differences between spiritualism and organized religion. I believe myself, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when people are searching for meaning in their life, and I feel it's all right for any. Well, I mean, I don't have the right to choose for other people what they believe or what they decide to believe. But when somebody tries to use that as a vehicle to control the thoughts and actions of others, that's when I have a real problem, because not only do they conflict with sometimes the law of the land, a la abortion clinic bombings and all of that stuff.
Right.
But
there's also
really
a problem with religious people using their religion as an excuse to blow up a subway.
Good people. So I wanted to make that message clear to a lot of people who really they have a big fear of what humanity will be like without a religion or a religious moral precept to follow. And also, and this is something I don't have an answer for, but maybe we can, amongst us, kind of decide whether or not atheists as a group or as individuals spend more time adhering to just laws that are made in courts, or what the real criteria is for morality. And I know it's a big question, because each person can have a different criteria for what's wrong or what's right. And I think it's really important to live, when you live in a society, is to kind of know where people stand, and it might make people more at ease with the show if they understand where you stand on moral issues. And with that, I'll let you guys answer.
All right.
Thanks again.
This is actually a great opportunity to plug the Euthyphro project, which unfortunately we lost our titles, so it may take them a while to type that back in. But it's euthyphroproject.com, but you won't be able to spell that unless you see it on the screen. People always argue that morality comes from God. And if it doesn't come from God, then it's arbitrary and meaningless. And that's actually something that was dealt with by Socrates a couple of thousand years ago. Somebody brought up the idea that morality has to come from the gods. And Socrates said, well, is it moral because it comes from the gods, or do the gods say it because it's moral? It's a little bit of a paradox, because if God says whatever, if God just decrees what morality is, then it's no more or less arbitrary than if people make it up. Right. God could say rape is moral, and then it would be. Or God could say, you should go out and sacrifice your son to me, and if you're willing to go do that, then you're a good person. As a matter of fact, I believe he did say that once. But we don't regard that as good things. On the other hand, if there's some moral standard that God has to live up to, like, maybe rape really is bad, and so God's not allowed to say rape is good because that would be bad, then morality comes from something other than God anyway, and so God's irrelevant to the process. He's just a middleman.
Yep.
In fact, where atheists believe that people get their morality is from the desire to live in a safe and just world, essentially. You go back to something that philosophers call a state of nature, where people are free to do whatever they want, and it's true that you'll have an awful lot of rape and killing and stealing, which we agree at this point are bad, but we should recognize that the reason we see them as bad at this point is because they're harmful to people. And if you live in a society where stealing is common, to take one example, then sure, you can steal other people's stuff, but you can also but they can steal your stuff.
Right.
Which means that you're never going to be really safe. You're probably not going to have any stuff unless you're constantly out there stealing. and you're going to be paranoid all the time about guarding what you have.
And of course, if you're out there stealing, that means your stuff back at home is probably not that safe.
Right, yes.
You're going to come back and find everything missing.
Yeah, that's a huge waste of time. It's a huge expenditure on energy that could be used to make people live longer, for instance. You know, now we expect to live to at least 75 or so, whereas, you know, a very long time ago, the life expectancy was like 30. And that all comes from the fact that we have been able to develop science and technology, and we've had laws which are enforced by policemen. You know, this didn't all happen because some god said, you know, thou shalt make policemen and thou shalt have technology. I mean, you know, if anything, the Bible is very down on humans taking problems into their own hands. But I think if you take a broad view of history, what you'll find is that that's how real progress is made, and that's why we think we have a much better society now, and a much safer one, and a much more pleasant to live in society than, say, ancient Jewish cultures, which were when the Bible was written. Not knocking Jews, I should mention, because I am a Jewish atheist. But you know, Matt a month ago brought up a bunch of horrible stuff that the Bible says is actually right.
Yeah. I actually had a discussion about morals with somebody over the last week. Excuse me. And a lot of Christians especially claim to ascribe to a belief that there are moral absolutes and that they come from God. And the reality of it is that most Christians tend to belong to what our friend Don calls watered-down Christianity, where they've gone through the Bible and picked and choose what they're going to believe and what they're not going to believe, and which laws and rules they're going to follow and which ones they aren't going to follow. And in doing so, they have done the exact thing that they claim to be against, which is exercising subjective morality. All they've done is go through the Bible and say, you know, I'm not going to take my unruly child to the edge of town and stone him for being bad. I'll do something else. I'll come up with another punishment. This kind of thrust that they're doing to always, it's all about moral absolutes, it's all about moral absolutes. No, it's not, and you prove it every day. We don't have the same morality and the same laws that we had 2,500 years ago. And there's a very small group of people who actually literally believe the Bible. And even those, I don't think are going to stone their children when they're unruly.
Yeah, and this is God. He's supposedly unchanging.
Right.
And yet, you know, Christians often dismiss all the bad stuff in the Bible by saying, well, that was just the Old Testament.
I think they're pretty justified because the Bible itself shows where God changes his mind. The most notorious is when he said, you know, I screwed up when I made these people. Let's kill them all except for this guy in a boat.
Right. If somebody decided that it would be a good idea to kill everyone on Earth except for 8 people, and he was human, you wouldn't consider that moral. You would consider him a monster. Anyway, I'd like to mention to the people who have called and are atheist friendly, essentially, that I'd like to remind you that we will be at Shanghai River after the show ends, and there's the address right there on your screen. It's near the Alamo Draft House, and we'll leave it up there for a minute or so while you Google the address or whatever you need to do to find your way. In the meantime, we're going to go on to Tony. Are you there?
I'm here.
Hi.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Not much. Well, sitting here on TV.
We're doing a TV show. What are you doing?
It's funny, I'm watching a TV show.
Wow.
I was kind of curious as to your comment on whether or not, like earlier you described your just sort of a thumbnail sketch of religion as being a belief in the supernatural being. Would you also have problems with religions or belief systems that believe that the human is a supernatural being? Maybe I'm asking if you're an empiricist or if your atheism is based on empiricism or relativism. A moment ago, the other gentleman was discussing moral absolutism versus moral relativism, for example, because I know atheists who are not moral relativists. Their atheism is based entirely on a belief in the scientific method
Could you define moral relativism first?
Well, for example, I would say it would be the antithesis to moral absolutism as defined by your colleague a few moments ago, being the belief that there are moral absolutes, things which are right, things which are wrong, regardless of time, place, etc. That there are.
Can you give me an example of something that would?
Well, actually, I'd like it if you went ahead and answered my query
because
first. I'm just interested in whether or not you personally are of the, for example, the ilk that is. My first question, remember, had to do with
the definition of religion, and there are many Buddhists, and as a matter of fact, the majority of them who are actually atheists, and they don't have an actual God as part of their religion. And,
right.
And do I consider their religion a real religion?
So that's why I say, because some atheists are going to, for example, be opposed to any form of psychic phenomenon or spiritual phenomenon or what do they call it? Supernatural phenomenon, which you record in almost every culture in the history of this
I would be one of those atheists.
Right.
If
so
there's
that's
not
all I'm
scientific
trying to do.
evidence,
This is not an attack, so the guy on the right can relax a little bit, because I'm not trying to attack him. I'm just trying to get a clearer picture of your ideology and on
which
what
guy is on the right?
ideas.
his right would be you.
Okay.
No, I would probably be one of those atheists. Yeah, it seems that way. Oh. I would be one of those atheists who's a rationalist, somebody who's going to want evidence. And no, I don't believe in anything supernatural. If you can't prove it, and I don't care if it's as silly as dowsing or John Edwards on the Sci-Fi Channel, if it's supernatural and you can't prove it, I probably don't believe it. I'm not going to believe anything until I'm given a good reason, a rational reason, to support it.
I should clarify, though, I don't know if this is true of you, but I do not automatically assume that anything supernatural is false. I just don't believe it, and no more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never say that if there's no scientific evidence for something, that thing is definitely false.
That's correct.
Because that would mean that science knows everything there is to know. And if you would ask any scientist in the world, they would definitely say there's all kinds of stuff we have no idea about.
And that's why actually the things that like the intelligent design people, which is creationism in disguise, they attack scientists, and because scientists are honest and they say, this is a theory, we know things to 98% certainty or 95% certainty, and they recognize that you can't ever possibly know absolutely everything and with 100% certainty on every issue. And that little gap is what they attack. It's what they say, well, you don't know everything, and therefore God must be true. Now, I don't immediately assume, if you tell me that you've had a supernatural experience, I don't necessarily immediately assume that it didn't happen, that it's false. I'm more apt to believe
I immediately lean in that direction.
Yeah, I'm more apt to believe in rational explanations that are consistent with what we know of reality. It's possible that it's true, and it's possible that there is a God, and it's possible, that there are leprechauns and invisible pink unicorns. But until somebody can actually provide evidence, there's not a justification to actually believe in it.
Right. I'd also like to address the moral relativism issue.
Yeah.
I was trying to ask him what specifically he meant by moral relativism, and he said something that was not very helpful, which is, well, it's the opposite of moral absolutism. The question is relative to what? Because when people talk, even people who talk about moral absolutism are apt to have relative opinions on certain things. Like, for instance, there's the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill."
Right.
Well, I think a majority of Christians living in the United States right now support being at war with Iraq. Or if they don't now, at least a majority of them were at one time. And that's killing. Which I don't think. I mean, I don't want to get into whether going to war is right or wrong, but you have to. There's nothing wrong with having rules that depend on the situation.
Right.
So, it may very well be. In fact, it may be that a couple of your moral rules come into conflict. Like, I'm sure, given enough time and imagination, we can come up with a scenario where you have to either kill somebody or steal something.
Sure, and there's the case of, my baby needs medicine and the hospitals and everything are closed and there's a pharmacy right there which is closed and he's going to die if I don't get it, and I'll break through the window and I'm going to get it. I still broke the law. I still did something which would be generally considered immoral, but the situation called for a different
my point
conclusion.
in trying to make it a contrast between killing and stealing, for instance, is, I don't know if that would be called directly killing, but if it came down to a choice between the absolutely wrong thing of killing somebody or the absolutely wrong thing of stealing somebody, one way or the other, you're going to have to turn into a moral relativist, because one of those principles is going to have to be better than the other one.
Yeah.
So what I would really say is that I believe in situational morality, in the sense that what is right and wrong depends very strongly on the circumstances. I mean, it's probably better to steal so that kid might live if you have no other options. What I don't agree with is moral relativism in the sense that there aren't in the sense that I wouldn't say there can't be a situation in which one action is definitely better than the other. I mean, I could turn to Matt right now and stab him to death. This is like the second time that I've used this analogy, but
and I'm starting to take offense.
It wasn't Matt. It wasn't you last time.
Oh, okay. Then everybody should be afraid of Russell.
But I wouldn't do that, and anybody who would do that without a particular situation that really, really called for that would be a horrible person. And I don't think that's really all that open to interpretation. There are gray areas, but, Anyway, so that's why I was trying to understand what you meant by moral relativism, because it's flung around by religious people as if it definitely means the same thing to everybody, and it doesn't.
Yeah, there's a general objection by a number of religionists that if you have subjective morality, if you have situational ethics, where each person is allowed to make up their own mind about what's right and what's wrong, well, what you really have is anarchy, because everybody's just going to run around killing everybody. Well, that's not the case. I've never killed anybody in my entire life that I know of. I've never, there's a lot of things that I've never done that I wouldn't do, that I don't do now. There are things that I did when I was a Christian that I don't do now. And I considered them wrong then, and I could still consider them wrong now, but for completely different reasons. Just to make this claim, which we often hear, that if you're an atheist, then you're some kind of amoral monster with no ethics, and what's to keep you from killing people? If you honestly believe that the only thing that keeps you from killing people is an order from God, then you keep going to church every single week. Because I don't want you running around not believing in God, because obviously you're going to be killing people. You need church.
Right. Good actions are not considered good because some magical being in the sky says they're good. Good actions are good because they positively affect people who have real lives in the real world. And bad actions are bad because they hurt or kill people who don't deserve to be. Let's go on to Tracie. Hello.
Hi. I actually wanted to address the guy that was talking about the supernatural.
Okay.
And one of the things that Matt had sort of mentioned was that it's a little bit dangerous to leave that caveat where you have, science doesn't know everything, and so this is possible. And Matt mentioned that, people will jump on that, and I've seen that too. They'll jump and run with that and say, well, therefore you can't say that what I'm saying might not be valid.
Yeah, it's the whole basis behind the God of the gaps, mentality.
Right, but there's a big difference between me saying that I don't know everything and someone saying that means anything I say is valid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that I always like to keep in mind whenever I'm talking to somebody that wants to bring up anything like ghosts or angels or aliens or anything like that is the Carl Sagan, invisible dragon in the garage.
Yeah, that's like my favorite analogy ever.
Yeah, if you can't test it, and if you can't show it to me through some sort of verifiable means, then we're really not talking about anything. I mean, we don't know what we're talking about. So if someone tells me, they believe in ghosts, my question is, can you get this thing to appear? Can you get this thing to show up on some kind of a monitor? Is there a gauge? Is there something we can use to test this out? Because if there's not, the word ghost is meaningless. It's the same as my word for nothing.
Right. If it has no way of affecting our reality at all in a way that we can detect, then how is it any different from
nothing?
Than nothing?
Yeah.
What difference does it make if it actually did exist? So what? There's a ghost. It exists, and you're absolutely right. It can't. There's no way to prove it. There's no way that it affects.
Well, there's no way
anything.
to even experience it or to have any sort of repeatable way of looking at it.
Yeah. So how is it that the person who's making the claim knows it's there?
Right.
I mean, they have to have
it's like what if even if they're claiming that something occurred, it's like, well, what is making you think it's a ghost?
Right.
You don't know what it was. Maybe there was some sort of surge, and maybe you did pick it up. Well, let's look at that then. Let's see what happens when you get some electromagnetic surge. What's causing it? Is it old rocks, or is it a ghost? I mean, what's more reasonable? And it's the same with God. It falls into that same classification, which is why I was really happy when James Randi started taking on religion, because I for a long time I felt that he needed to do that. It fell so much in line with the other things that he was criticizing. And when he took that step, I wrote him a letter and said, thank you for doing that. I've idolized you from the time I was little, and seeing this is just, thank you very much. And, I mean, if it's supernatural, that means it's not natural, it's not testable, it's not verifiable, and it's no different than nothing. And until you can find a way to test for it and find a way to verify something about it, we have no way to even discuss it, because we don't even know what we're talking about.
Right.
Absolutely.
The key thing that anybody should be the first thing that comes into your mind if you think there's something new and unexplained out there is, how would I know the difference between a situation where it was there and it wasn't there? What tests could I run to tell the difference? If there are no tests, then it doesn't matter if it's there or not.
Yeah. Now, Tracie mentioned James Randi, and I don't think we actually have a graphic up to link to his site, but it's www.randi.org.
That's R-A-N-D-I.
R-A-N-D-I. He publishes a weekly newsletter called Swift, where he points out all kinds of crazy things, and he has a $1 million standing challenge to anybody who can demonstrate proof of supernatural, etc. And you kind of got to wonder, these psychics are supposedly making all kinds of money because they know all kinds of things, and yet none of them have claimed the $1 million yet. Why? You don't have to keep it for yourself if you think that you can't use your powers to benefit yourself. You can give it to the poor. Of course, if you don't think you can use your powers to benefit yourself, why are you taking money from people who are calling you asking what their future is?
I'll let somebody else get on the line.
Okay.
Thanks, Tracie.
Thanks,
Sure.
Tracie.
Bye.
And a reminder one more time that we're going to be meeting at Shanghai River after the show. You can pop the address up there. Feel free to drop by around 6:45 if you want to hang out with the coolest people.
Yay.
But not people who who remember to work their phone box. Let's see. Before I go on to callers, I just want to do a quick rundown of news of interest.
Yeah, there's some stuff we ought to get to.
First of all, I assume everybody's heard about the London train bombing by now. A group calling itself the secret organization Al-Qaeda in Europe has posted a claim of responsibility for the series of blasts in London, a German magazine reported Thursday. Der Spiegel magazine reported that the group posted its message on a website popular with Islamic militants, which it did not name. It said the group claimed the explosions were in retaliation for Britain's involvement in Iraq and Afghanistan. Rejoice, Islamic nation, rejoice, Arab world, the time has come for vengeance against the Zionist crusader government of Britain in response to the massacres Britain committed in Iraq and Afghanistan, read the statement, a photograph of which was displayed on Der Spiegel's website. The heroic Mujahideen carried out a blessed attack in London, and now Britain is burning with fear and terror from north to south, east to west, it said. I'd just like to point out, in case people are tempted to blame Islam overall for this, that there are lunatic Christians out there, and there are sane Muslims out there. And I think I speak for most of us in the atheist community of Austin when I say that the danger level is related to how seriously you believe that some imaginary afterlife is more important than being good to people in this life.
Yeah, there was actually a really good analogy on the West Wing right after 9/11, where they pointed out that we're not dealing with Muslims, we're not dealing with people of the Islamic faith in general, we're dealing with Islamic extremists, and they are Islamic extremists is to Islam as the KKK is to Christianity. That's
Right.
They made the point that that's who we're actually dealing with.
On the other hand, I would be willing to bet that the Islamic extremists are a higher proportion of Islam.
That may be. And it's like you pointed out about the beliefs about the afterlife. If you tell somebody that if you kill yourself for Allah, you're going to be sent to that heaven with 72 virgins.
Yeah.
Now you've created an incentive. I mean, if you can actually get people to believe that, there's an incentive for them to do things.
If somebody tells you you should go blow yourself up. Actually, I read that this wasn't a suicide bombing, But if somebody tells you that if you blow somebody else up, then you'll have eternal reward, you can either believe them or not believe them. And obviously, as atheists, it should be obvious which side we think is the right one. Another story I want to get out of the way real quick. An update on the Schaivo case, which Karen and I ranted about a couple of weeks ago. State attorney says no crime in Schaivo case, ending inquiry. Florida's state attorney said there was no evidence that Terry Schaivo's collapse 15 years ago involved criminal activity, and Governor Jeb Bush on Thursday declared an end to the state's inquiry. I really like that phrase, no evidence, because it's the same thing we think about God. When you start going after a private citizen as the governor of a country based on, repeat, no evidence, you're doing a bad thing. Another caller?
Sure. Whenever you mention Jeb Bush and the whole Schaivo thing, I gotta get a little irritated. I mean, he had kind of like this personal crusade against a man, for reasons that were obviously unfounded.
Religious in nature.
And actually. It's... Oh, look at what a wonderful thing Jeb Bush is doing. No, he went after a guy full force because he used the power of his office to influence legal policy against one individual. I think that's despicable myself, but at least it's over. At least the attorneys come back and said, hey, there was no evidence. We need to stop pursuing this. We need to stop harassing this guy.
Yeah.
Let the guy live his life.
Good for him. John, are you there?
Yes, just a quick question, and then I'll leave it up to you. What exactly is the ontological case for God? How does that argument go, and how is it refuted? I love your show. I just love listening to you guys talk, and maybe you can help me out with that.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Are we supposed to hang up on you? I guess so. Ontological argument.
If I'm remembering correctly, and I've got it down in my notebook somewhere, but I believe that is what it was referring to. The ontological argument for God is just the self-evidence argument.
Doesn't the ontological argument have something to do with the universe is perfectly tuned for humans to exist?
That the evidence of nature itself proclaims the evidence, or the nature proclaims the evidence of a creator. Is the way the argument goes.
What they say basically is that just look at the world. It's so perfectly suited to humans, that there's no way that, I mean, if you change just one little thing, I mean, if there was less water on the Earth or the gravitational constant was a little different, then we couldn't possibly survive. And so, the argument goes on. Because of this, it must be the case that there was a God who wanted us to exist. My favorite one-liner that shoots this one down is something that Douglas Adams once wrote, which is, imagine that you're a puddle, and you wake up one morning, somehow you're a conscious puddle, and you say to yourself, this is an interesting hole that I find myself in. In fact, it's perfectly shaped like me, and it must have been created just to have me in it. What this analogy illustrates is that people are looking at this backwards, because obviously the puddle wasn't designed around, the hole wasn't designed around the puddle. The puddle simply adapted to the way that the hole actually was. If you understand the principle of evolution, basically what you've got is that life adapts to its environment, and whatever life happens to be in whatever form, obviously it's going to be perfectly suited to live on the world where it evolved, because if it wasn't, it would be gone.
Yeah, it couldn't have evolved there. There's another element to it, which is tied in, of applying significance to a result. Out of all the possibilities, all of them are equally likely. But when you apply significance to one result, you're now, saying, oh my gosh, that's, the odds are 1 in 65 quintillion to 1 that would happen, and look at that, isn't that neat? But you've applied a significance to the end result. The fact is they were all equally likely, but the conditions, they seem to be implying that evolution has a purpose, that there's some end goal. There's not. It's the process. And
as carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, water-drinking beings who happen to be living on planet Earth, we're pretty impressed by all the oxygen and water and stuff that there is. But if we were silicon-based, nitrogen-breathing beings living on Jupiter, we'd no doubt say the same thing. Look at this incredible planet Jupiter. What a coincidence that it's exactly suited to have us.
Only we probably wouldn't be saying it in English.
Yeah. We have time for one last call because we've got 3 minutes left on the show. So I'm going to make it Richard, I think. Hello, are you there?
Yeah, this is kind of related to what you've already been touching on. I've always wanted to talk about just the nature of things. Everything is so raw and so, dog eat dog, big fish eat little fish. You know what I'm saying? So how can a good God even create such an environment? I mean, the whole universe is basically hot. Friction, everything existing off of something else, just savagery. How can that be created by a good and loving God who has nothing but positive intentions? It just doesn't even make sense. It's not even logical. But that's where people seem to take everything. If you just started the basic ingredients of the whole nature of things, it just doesn't make sense that there's a good God behind all this. If it is a God, he's certainly not good, that's for sure.
Of course, you're talking about the argument from evil, and that doesn't prove that there is no God. I mean,
Oh, no, I'm not saying good or evil. I'm just saying everything seems to be related in some way or another towards, just savagery and, just a survival instinct kicking in.
Right. The argument from evil is used. The argument from evil is used to show that if a God exists, he can't be both all-powerful and all-good. You can't be omnipotent and omnibenevolent. It just doesn't work. It doesn't
unless
explain
you really twist things that happen and say, well, that wasn't really evil.
Yeah, I have a great bumper sticker, which I don't have on my car right now, but I might. And it basically said that if your God exists, he's a malign thug.
Yeah, you have to remember, of course, that every time you hear about a terrible bus crash, for instance, and everybody dies except for one person, what you hear is not, how could God let this happen? It's mainly, boy, God sure looked out for that one guy, didn't he? So, God pretty much can't lose. And if there were no survivors, it would be, boy, thank God it wasn't even, there weren't even more people on that bus.
Exactly.
We're almost out of time, and I see there's more people on the phone, so you can give us feedback at
email tv@atheist-community.org. Sorry, we're out of time to show that. And one more time, meet us at Shanghai River in about 45 minutes if you're so inclined.
It's good food.
Yeah.
And a good time. You get to meet everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Matt, for a great presentation on Scientology. Thank you, callers, and thanks, crew who just got listed, and goodbye.